All right, welcome to Real Talk. I am your host, Paul Britton, and today, look, I got to 1 week. Last weekend, I got to four movies. This weekend, I got to one. It was Disclosure Day. It's Steven Spielberg. I'm not even gonna apologize for just having one movie because it's friggin' Steven Spielberg, and there's a zillion things to talk about. And on the on sort of the intro banner for this particular movie, I called it a blockbuster. And let's talk numbers for a minute. This movie grossed $44 million, which post COVID is really good. But then you think about, how movies pre-COVID that just would regularly gross 100 million, like 100 million for opening pre-COVID was just like for a summer blockbuster was expected. Like if you didn't hit 100 million, it was just like, oh my goodness, what problems are you having? And Steven Spielberg is, synonymous with summer blockbuster because he created it. And Jaws was the first movie that was just like, holy crap, we can make, $100 million with a movie. And um and so it's a really it's the dynamics of what constitutes a huge opening, what constitutes a summer blockbuster today, right now, it's interesting. For context, for this summer, some of our prior big huge openings this year, very recent. Both backrooms made, I think, 88 million. The Star Wars Mandalorian and Grogu made 80 million. By the way, noted as, ooh, is that a failure? Because it was the lowest Star Wars opening in 40 years or something. Just and so therefore people are like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Disclosure Day makes $44 million, almost half of Backrooms and a little more than half of Star Wars and Mandalorian and Grogu. And so you're thinking, oh, that's not very good. But then you have to understand Steven Spielberg's openings. And his number one opening film of all time, this is going to shock everybody, is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which had, which was basically 100 million even, which is like, whoa, that's crazy. Yes, that is crazy. His number two opening movie of all time, and that was from 2008. Okay. So, he's had almost 17 years, 16 years to have a movie open bigger than $100 million and hasn't done it. Okay. His prior to that, his biggest opening was Jurassic Park Lost World. And that was from 2001, and that was 72 million. And you're probably thinking, okay, give me something more recent. Give me something more recent. Okay, so prior to Disclosure Day making $44 million, his number one opening weekend, post, we'll say, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, was Ready Player One 2018 at $41 million. And that is crazy to me. First of all, that in 2018, Ready Player One only made $41 million because I feel like a whole bunch of people wanted to see that movie. But also thinking back, I also, if I remember correctly, vaguely remember that being commented on being a rather poor opening, and just to set the record, 1993's Jurassic Park comes in fourth in the list at $47 million. And so so it took the Lost World to top Jurassic Park. Also, interestingly enough, numbers 1 and 2 are arguably two of his worst movies, with Crystal Skull and Lost World. So that gives you a little bit of context to what $44 million, $44 million represents for Steven Spielberg opening. So yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and call this a blockbuster. For Steven Spielberg, that's a really, really solid opening weekend. Add on to that it's an original concept, brand new concept. There's no, Indiana Jones behind it. There's no Jurassic Park behind it, even War of the Worlds, which is at number 3 with $64 million. There, that was you know it's an original Steven Spielberg sci-fi movie. Um, it's the only one on that list, uh, from 1 through 5, and even number 6, Ready Player One, that is, classic Steven Spielberg original, like you would expect from way back in the day before everything had to be IP, and his stuff wasn't based on books, so stuff like what this movie is closely being compared to, which is uh, the Close Encounters of a Third Kind, and that type of thing. Or another movie this movie is closely being compared to is E.T., which were just original stories that Steven Spielberg came out and was like, yeah, let's make this shit. And just classics, classic 80s, 70s and 80s movies. And now he's back at it. It's the only one of the top 6 that is an original movie. So bravo to Steven Spielberg for coming out with a big, huge $44 million for a brand new movie. And by the way, did 90 million globally. So, which is not anything to sneeze at. Bravo. So yeah, Disclosure Day, big time hit. Now let's talk about, was it worthwhile to go see? Does it deserve to be a hit? So look, what is Steven Spielberg known for? When we're talking about a sci-fi movie or an action heavy movie, what you're looking for from Steven Spielberg are set pieces. And there's a set piece in this movie, takes place on a train. It's in the trailer, so I'm not revealing anything that nobody knows about. It takes place basically not necessarily on a train, but attached to a train, as a car was pushed under a car that the two stars, Emily Blunt and Josh O'Connor, were driving in, and then they have to jump onto the train from the car that's stuck under the train before another train hits it. Steven, just classic, just amazing. It has all of the hallmarks of Steven Spielberg, which are the camera angles, the camera movement, people looking in wonder. That's just like the Steven. It's shot from down here, lighting from up there. Just you would see it. You could see the reaction shot of people, and you're like, oh, that's a Steven Spielberg reaction shot, and it's just it just works. The big huge face over here. Poor lightning. Sorry. Big huge. Nope, I'm looking the wrong way. Big huge face over here, and a whole bunch of stuff going on back over here. Just classic Steven Spielberg stuff. So visually, yeah, this movie just feels like a Spielberg movie. It sounds like a Spielberg movie. He got John Williams to come out of retirement. He begged John Williams to come in, and God bless John Williams. He's not going to get nominated, nor will he win. But wouldn't it be fucking awesome to just be like, here, John Williams, you were nominated like 20 times for Academy Awards. You only won like 3 times. You probably deserve at least 10. I could name just 10 movies just barely without even thinking about it. He did win for Jaws. He deserved for Jaws. Indiana Jones deserved to win. I don't care what one. Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, all 3 deserve to win. I don't care what one. Phantom Menace, you can say what you want about the movie. The score is fucking ridiculous. Deserve to win just for the Duel of Fates. There's work in The Force Awakens that is it as strong as the other 4 Star Wars movies I just mentioned? No, but it still deserves. Superman, the original Superman movie, deserves to win for that. I could just keep going on and on. I won't. Anyway, give it to him. And the key is that the tone is just a classic Steven Spielberg movie, and this is where. So Steven Spielberg more recently since we'll say since the turn of into the 2000s, he really picked up his he really picked up on shying a little bit away from just straight up action and straight up science fiction, and taking on films that are a little heavier into social commentary and historical context. Bridge of Spies, Lincoln, Munich, social commentary, uh, even like so Minority Report is a heavy uh sci-fi movie with major social uh, com- um tones, overtones. AI sci-fi movie, but with major social overtones. Disclosure Day does pick up on that aspect of it. The idea of Steven Spielberg presenting a sci-fi movie with major social overtones. But the major social overtones here harken back to the ones I mentioned earlier, which are like E.T. and Close Encounters of a Third Kind. Look, it's not a secret at this point. I'm not spoiling anything here. The movie's about what happens if aliens are real and there's an agency, government adjacent, government supported, that works to prevent people from finding out about the aliens existing, while also capitalizing off of the technologies that the aliens bring with them when they happen to crash land or something along those lines. And how would how would breaking that silence work? And that's really what the movie's about. The movie, so you could say, I want the end of Act 1 to be the disclosure, and then I want to know about the ramifications after. Not this movie. This movie is the build up to the actual disclosure. You get the disclosure, and then what you might want to claim are interesting parts that you want to see, as far as, okay, what happens to society now? Psh, cut, fade to black. We're not doing that. We are telling the story of how this story is told, and that's what's presented here, and I'm fine with that. Look, I will frequently say here, I try not to make my criticism or my thoughts on a movie focus too heavily on it. I would have rather have seen X, Y, or Z. I want to meet the movie that the storyteller chooses to tell on its own terms. And so that's what we're doing here with Disclosure Day. And as I was saying, I am totally cool with that. The flip side here is that we're also presented with a view of the world that might have existed in the 80s, might have existed in the 90s, definitely doesn't exist today. There are so many aspects, and this is the criticism that I'm hearing about this movie that I think is just 100% valid and accurate and really warranted, which is the idea that Emily Blunt plays the weather person at a local station in Kansas City. Okay, and the classic scene in the trailers where she starts clicking, goes insta viral, and it's like, okay, that's cool. Yes, it's going insta viral online, but it's not insta, nothing goes viral that quickly. But this movie is like, yes, no, this one absolutely. So many people were watching it and went insta viral, and nationally insta viral. The idea that the organization led by Coleman Domingo that is trying to counteract the work of the nefarious organization to keep the thing secret, and so the organization trying to work towards disclosure has decided that the best way to do that is via local news that can tap into national news, and then the national news will tap into global news. And that's just, I don't know how that would function in today's world. I just don't know. And I know it wouldn't be as quick and as big as what is presented here. Um, it makes for really good movie storytelling though, because there isn't a mechanism to make something instant global online, because nothing gets viral that quickly. You know, uh things take a little bit of time and effort to get viral, but when your source of news is television news, that can get viral really quick. But that's just not the source anymore. But for the purposes of this movie, that has to be the source. And then everybody's watching on their phone. So put that aside. That's a problem. The other problem that it really requires you to believe that people will believe. And not so much believe that there are aliens, but be given photographic proof that there are aliens, and believe that people will believe, you know, photograph and movie after photograph and movie after photograph and movie that are just super real. Like that people are just going to accept that. And people do not believe anything they see anymore. And I saw this movie with my good friend Jim, and he's just kind of like, I mean, we're living in an age right now where, back in the day, you used to read news and then need to go verify it. Now, the AI has gotten to the point where you have to see news and go verify it. And like, this is all coming from one source, and they're going to verify it from that one source. And it's just like, that's problematic, And, let's talk about Colin Firth. He's the bad guy in this. Just a paper thin. The thing that I will say is that this movie runs 230. It should run maybe 110. There's a lot of padding on here. It does an extended deep dive via Josh O'Connor's girlfriend, who is played by Eve Hewson. Her name is Jane, and Jane was a novitiate, studying to become a nun. And so she adds a religious veneer to the movie that I'm just never going to, that's just an aspect of it that's just never going to click with me. I don't care, and that might speak poorly on me, but it's also just a reality. But the flip side of all the negatives, and I wanted to get the negatives out of the way, is first of all, Emily Blunt, she's fucking amazing. I mean, this is she's just throwing high heat all movie, and it's just absolutely captivating. I don't mind this aspect of these sort of Pollyanna-ish reactions. It's just, you have to acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge that everything that all of the reactions that you're getting and the mechanisms are kind of Pollyanna-ish and don't really exist, and probably not going to be how things work. But I didn't mind that stuff, and it worked on me, even though in the back of my head I'm like, oh, this isn't really going to be how it's going. I still ate it up. I just enjoyed it. I was a sucker for it. Steven Spielberg won me over again on something. The characters need more development, but the story is propulsive enough that you kind of just, the lack of character development is more like a speed bump as you're just, trying to not get hit by a train, ultimately. the there's a MacGuffin, and then there's a MacGuffin to the MacGuffin, and it's just like you really have to just be like, okay, there's a MacGuffin, and they can do whatever they want with it. It's literally just like a free pass. It's a get out of jail free card. This MacGuffin, and um, like I am just such a goober when it comes to MacGuffins. Like, I'm just like, okay, whatever. You know what? Just I don't even need like consistency or anything like that. This is me acknowledging that some of the things in the movie that are like highly questionable, I am not going to be prone to questioning them. So if you fucking hate MacGuffins in movies and you think it's stupid, this movie might not be for you. However, if you're willing to just accept that there's a MacGuffin, and that MacGuffins can break rules, and you're totally cool with it as long as the movie's moving forward, and everybody is, it's working towards a climax, you might be good. You might be okay. I did love the ending. I loved it. I loved the presentation of the evidence via the news, even though there's no fucking way that this is gonna become insta viral and work as well as the people who are hoping this works hope. It's not gonna go like that, but I I didn't care. Like, I just like I'm a stan of journalism, and so like journalism working, even if it's unrealistic, I was yeah, let's do that. Let's do that thing. Let's do the thing where journalism works. Um and like Steven Spielberg. It's a Steven Spielberg movie, so I was happy to have Steven Spielberg in my life. And that's what's going on here at Real to Real Talk. Instead of stars, when we're rating a movie, we give it tacos. And if something deserves a little extra, instead of doing like a half a star equivalent half taco, we add guac. Why? Because nobody eats half a fucking taco. This movie is 3 tacos plus guac. It is not a 4 taco movie. No, it is not on that plane of existence. Um, but it's I it's such a fun, like, you are happy and fun to be sitting in a theater watching this movie, and I feel bad for anybody who goes to this movie is just super cynical and is just like, no, fuck this, I don't want this happiness going on, and that, or not happiness, but propulsive story going on, and I'm gonna be mad that some of the characters aren't as developed as I might have liked, and plot hole, because that's not how social media works, and it's like, okay, I get it, that's not how social media works, um but also in Steven Spielberg's mind, that's how it works, and I'm happy with that. I'm willing to give it that. Next week, we've got Toy Story 5, and we've got The Death of Robin Hood, and Sergio said he's going to be back, so needless to say, I'm stoked.